Hey guys, tonight we slip barefoot into a world where the air smells of damp earth, burnt marrow, and something musky that might be your own armpit. You're curled up on a fur-covered stone ledge deep inside a cave, where a faint glow from last night's fire still flickers, trying its best not to die out completely. Outside, the wind rustles through wild grass and the occasional howl, maybe wolf, maybe just Og having indigestion, slices the pre-dawn quiet. Welcome to a typical morning in the Stone Age. And spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you guys are tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink awake to the sound of someone snoring like a congested mammoth, which is honestly impressive given the nasal passage options back then. You shift, your shoulder popping against the stone bed, and stretch your legs right into a pile of cold ashes. Lovely. The fire's mostly out, which means the chill has crept in, turning your breath into fog and your toes into little prehistoric icicles. You're wrapped in a bundle of animal hides. Bear, maybe. Could be raccoon, honestly, hard to tell when everything's been smoked over the fire for a week straight. You inhale deeply, taking in the glorious scent of wet fur, stale sweat, and charcoal. It's oddly comforting, like the caveman version of morning coffee. Your first mission? Get that fire going again. The embers are there, glowing dimly, and you nudge them gently with a charred stick. You blow slowly, the way you were taught, mouth close, breath steady, no spitting unless you want to ruin breakfast again. A flicker, then a crackle, then boom, flame. Not bad. You almost feel like a wizard. Fact is, fire maintenance was crucial in your world. No fire meant no heat, no cooked food, and no predator deterrent. Archaeological evidence shows early humans not only learned to make fire, but to preserve it, keeping embers in animal horn containers filled with moss, basically Stone Age thermoses. Your stomach groans like a cave bear in a bad mood, reminding you haven't eaten in, well, let's call it a while. You could gnaw on last night's marrow bones, but something about the green fuzz growing on them feels like a terrible idea. Historians still argue whether early humans ate 3 meals a day or just opportunistically gnawed things whenever they weren't being chased or freezing. Judging by your current vibe, it's the latter. Someone stirs near you. Ah, it's Grawl, the guy who snores like he's in a permanent tug-of-war with his own lungs. He scratches himself, grunts, and rolls back over. Morning greetings here are minimal. A nod, a grunt, maybe a raised eyebrow if someone brought back honey the day before. Talking before sunrise? That's a hard no. You're not animals after all. A few kids scamper past, barefoot and already covered in what looks like mud or blood. You're hoping for mud. One of them stops to poke a half-burnt stick into the fire and then runs off cackling. Classic. You stretch again and brace yourself for the next challenge, stepping outside. Because while the cave keeps things cozy and relatively safe, outside is where things get weird. Big, hungry, and cold. You gather your furs around you, slap your cheeks, both sets, to wake up and shuffle toward the cave's mouth. Ready or not, Paleolithic Monday is here. Outside, the world hits you in the face like a slap from a cold, damp mammoth tail. The air is crisp, nearly freezing, and smells of moss, pine, and whatever decomposing thing the wind just stirred up nearby. You squint against the faint, orange-pink light breaking over the jagged hills in the distance, rubbing crust from your eyes with the back of your knuckles, which, by the way, are rougher than a flint-chipped potato. You take a moment to shiver dramatically and curse the lack of socks, thermal underwear, or central heating. A thin curl of smoke snakes out from the cave behind you. The fire's still going, which is good because building one from scratch, by friction no less, is a full-on gym session you didn't sign up for before sunrise. The clan usually keeps it burning 24/7. In fact, some early societies likely had designated firekeepers, people whose job it was to protect those tiny glowing embers like their lives depended on it. Because, well, they kind of did. You tiptoe over the cold rocks, feet bare and unforgiving. Stones dig into your heels like prehistoric acupuncture. Honestly, you should have made yourself some of those fancy woven sandals that the older gatherer women whip up out of bark and sinew. But no, you had to spend yesterday trying to chase a goat off a cliff instead. Priorities. You pad down to a small ridge that overlooks the valley. Your territory. Or, more realistically, the spot your group hopes no larger, more toothy group is interested in this week. The grass glistens with dew, and from here you can see the faint zigzagging trails of animal paths leading into thicker woods. A few birds call to one another in sharp whistles, and off in the distance, something grunts. Probably a boar. Or worse, a giant ground sloth. They're like furry buses with claws. Your job this morning is to scope things out. Not a full hunt, just a perimeter check. Make sure no one wandered too close in the night. Humans were scavengers as much as they were hunters, and defending kills, or just staying alive, often meant staking your claim early and loudly. Still, scholars debate whether early Homo sapiens kept to defined territories, or if it was more of a whoever throws the sharpest rock gets the land kind of deal. You lean down and brush aside some brushy ferns, checking for tracks. Here, in the soft mud, are the deep impressions of what might be deer hooves, or, judging by the size, maybe something more exotic. Maybe even a horse, a wild one. That would be a score, if your clan nearly got trampled trying to wrangle one last moon. And then there's that footprint. Human. Not yours. Not barefoot either. Someone was wearing some kind of woven foot wrap. You frown, not that anyone can see you. Another group must have passed nearby, which could mean trading or fighting, or both in that order if you're lucky. You straighten up, brush aside the back of your neck, and try not to let your brain spiral into what-if territory. That saber-toothed tiger you almost met last winter, still fresh in your mental slideshow. You tug your fur tighter around your shoulders and start heading back to camp. Senses alert, muscles tight. Your feet slap quietly against the cool stone as you hop over a puddle. The sun's a little higher now, and with it, your nervous system seems to realize today is definitely going to be a try not to die kind of day. Back inside the cave, things have shifted from quiet grunts to full-on communal rustling. You walk in and are immediately hit with the scent of smoked hides, sweaty bodies, and something fermenting in a gourd that you absolutely refuse to ask about. The fire's back to a healthy crackle, casting flickering shadows on the cave walls. Dancing figures that, if you stare long enough, almost look like they're reenacting last week's failed mammoth ambush. Which they probably are. You lower yourself onto your designated rock. Everyone has one, though the concept of assigned seating is still, well, fluid. You scrape a thin film of frost from your thigh and start the next necessary ritual, personal grooming. And by grooming, we're talking wiping last night's dream drool off your chin with a handful of dry moss and using a piece of bone to pick yesterday's meat from your teeth. Spa day, Stone Age edition. Here's the fun part.
Despite the reputation, hygiene wasn't entirely foreign to early humans. Archaeologists have found what appear to be toothpicks made of wood and bone, and even primitive combs fashioned from animal rib cages. Hair maintenance was a thing. Clean-ish skin was a goal. You just had to work with what nature, and yesterday's leftovers, gave you. You reach for a shard of polished obsidian and examine your reflection in the jagged surface. It's humbling. Your hair looks like a woolly rhino rolled over it. There's something crusty in your eyebrow, which may or may not be last night's stew. You quickly smear it off, pretending not to notice. Next to you, one of the younger clan members is vigorously scratching his scalp with a stick, eyes closed in bliss. You glance at him, he glances at you. You both nod, as if to say, yes, we are thriving. In the back corner, two women are plucking lice from each other's hair with the practiced efficiency of surgeons. One of them pops one between her thumbnails and mutters a curse you suspect predates language. Historians still argue whether delousing each other was strictly hygienic or more of a social bonding exercise, like the ancient version of gossiping over coffee. You suspect both. Someone tosses you a chunk of dried meat. Probably squirrel, though there's a non-zero chance it's rat. You chew anyway. Hunger doesn't have time for pickiness. It's dry, salty, and gritty with sand. Delicious. Nearby, old Gar is smearing mud onto his arms like some kind of clay-based body lotion. He believes it wards off cave spirits and biting flies. Honestly, it probably works on the flies, maybe even the spirits. Who's going to argue with a man who wrestled a wild goat last month and won? You finish your snack and start rebraiding a few pieces of leather into your belt. The strands were unraveling again, a side effect of yesterday's vine-swinging moment that you'll never admit was mostly an accident. The belt holds your flint knife, a bit of sinew, a sharp stick, and what may be a lucky toe bone. You're not entirely sure whose, but it feels lucky. Someone belches dramatically behind you, and another voice responds with a counter-belch. It echoes. You all sit in brief silence, reflecting on the acoustic majesty. Then a grunt from the fire circle. Time to gear up. You stand, adjust your furs, and mentally brace yourself, because if you're about to step back outside, the next challenge will involve sharp rocks, loud roars, and the slim chance of a free meal that doesn't try to kill you first.
You shuffle toward the center of the cave, where the clan's core decision-making tends to happen, around the fire, surrounded by smoke, bones, and people pretending they know what they're doing. It's all very democratic, if by democratic you mean whoever grunts loudest gets to lead the hunt. The vibe this morning? Uneasy. Tension hums in the air like a wasp near your ear. You take your place by the circle, cross-legged on a patch of fur you hope was never part of anything venomous. Your stomach still rumbles, but louder now is the growling anticipation. Are you heading out today? Gathering? Guard duty? You silently pray for anything except babysitting the twins who throw rocks at snakes for fun. Someone lobs a scorched bone into the fire, and it pops, sending a puff of ash into the air like a ghost escaping its contract. Across the flames, Growl, the unofficial leader, mostly because he's loud and terrifying, grunts a few sounds that vaguely resemble a plan. His arms wave, his fingers point. He makes a sharp "huh" sound and looks at you. You nod. Congratulations, you've just been volunteered. Next to Growl, the clan's closest thing to a thinker, Mira, who sometimes paints on walls and doesn't eat bugs, speaks up. She draws a quick sketch in the dirt with a charred stick, a shape that could be a deer, or a rock, or your cousin. The message? Possible prey to the east near the stream.
Despite the lack of formal language, communication here is surprisingly nuanced. Between gestures, expressions, and occasional rock pointing, the clan handles complex planning remarkably well. Some researchers believe that early humans developed proto-language grunts with tonal meaning, like musical emojis, but with more saliva. A boy not much older than you awkwardly hands out stone-tipped spears. His hands are shaking slightly, probably his first big hunt. You give him a nod, the universal caveman equivalent of, "You've got this, kid," though his odds hover somewhere between probably fine and accidental mammoth bait. You inspect your own spear, rubbing your thumb over the sharpened flint tip. It's decent, chipped recently, bound tightly with sinew. You recall helping shape a few just like it 2 moons ago, using a hammerstone to nap the edges. The technique's tricky. One wrong hit and the flint shatters into a dozen shards, one of which will definitely end up in your foot later. Fun fact, the Levallois technique, a method for shaping stone tools, was a real thing. It's been found across multiple continents, showing that early humans weren't just bashing rocks together. They were deliberate, practiced, and maybe even a little smug about it. You sling a leather satchel over your shoulder. Inside, more sinew, a sharp bone for emergencies, and 2 half-dried mushrooms that might be food or not. You're saving those for when you really need a morale boost or a vision quest. The kids have stopped throwing pebbles at the ceiling. Even they can sense the shift in energy. It's hunt o'clock. You all move as one toward the cave entrance, the firelight behind casting long shadows ahead. No one speaks, but the air says enough. Be sharp, be fast, be lucky. One elder grunts a blessing, short, rhythmic, something about sky good, ground safe. You mutter it back, just in case. Superstition? Maybe? But when your life depends on whether or not something with tusks and rage spots you first, a little mumbling never hurts. As you step into the light again, the world is suddenly huge, unpredictable, and very, very hungry.
You squint into the pale morning light as the wind tugs at your furs, and with a grunt that translates roughly to, "Welp, here we go again," you begin your slow descent into the wild. It's you, Grawl, and Rennie, your unofficial hunting trio, a team balanced by brute strength, cautious optimism, and someone who once threw a spear backward during training. That was you. The birds are still laughing. Your first stop is the weapons nook, a narrow outcrop tucked just inside the entrance, cluttered with flint shards, bone tools, and half-finished spears in various states of splintery despair. Rennie is already muttering to herself, tightening the leather bindings on her stone axe. She's the quiet one, but you've seen her bring down a wild boar with a single overhand swing, which is intimidating. You, meanwhile, are still not sure which end of your spear is the lucky one. You inspect your gear again, because nothing says, "I'm definitely prepared," like obsessively checking the sharp rock tied to your stick. The flint blade has a jagged edge, not perfect, but functional. These weapons are no joke. Flint napping takes hours, sometimes days, and requires ridiculous hand-eye coordination and the patience of a prehistoric saint. And yes, historians still argue whether most members of the tribe made their own tools or if there were dedicated toolmakers, like early versions of your local hardware store guy, just with more loincloth. Tucked into your belt is a small bone blade you sharpened last week. It's carved from a deer's rib, sanded smooth with shark skin you traded for last season. That's right, prehistoric humans loved a good barter. Items like shells, pigments, and fancy tools were hot commodities between groups. Your knife might not look like much, but in the right hands, it's a universal key. Digger, scraper,
personal defense mechanism, and occasionally toothpick. Grawl lets out a snort of approval as he lifts a massive wooden club. It's more of a tree limb than a precision instrument, but it suits him. Covered in teeth marks, some his, some not, it gives off a very "do not test me" vibe. He hoists it over his shoulder and grins, revealing teeth that have seen too many roasted roots and too few cleanings. Dental care in this era? Primitive at best. There's evidence early humans used chewed sticks or rough fibers, but judging by Grawl's mouth, he skipped that memo. One last adjustment. You retie the sinew wrist strap on your spear. Not because it helps, but because it looks cool. Okay, fine. And because your sweaty hands have a tendency to let things go mid-throw. Remember that elk last month? The one that walked away with your spear still stuck in its rump and a look of pure betrayal on its face? Yeah, let's not repeat that. Rennie steps toward the trail with the ease of someone who prefers stalking prey to talking about feelings. Grawl follows with a grunt that might have been, "Let's go," or "I hate mornings." You follow, slipping into the trio's rhythm as you head into the brush. The trees ahead sway gently, birds take off in startled flocks, and somewhere in the tall grass, something growls low and long. You tighten your grip on your spear. This day is only just beginning, and your flint-tipped stick better be enough to keep you in the story.
You push through a wall of ferns, each one slapping your thighs with the enthusiastic chill of prehistoric nature, and squint into the morning haze. Your breath forms lazy clouds in the air. Grawl moves ahead, all swagger and heavy footsteps, while Rennie walks like a shadow, silent, lean, and constantly scanning the horizon like she expects the trees to jump out at her. You bring up the rear, clutching your spear with all the confidence of someone hoping it won't end up in a tree again. Scouting the perimeter isn't glamorous. It's not hunting, not gathering. It's the slightly anxious middle child of Stone Age chores. But it's crucial. You're checking for signs, footprints, snapped branches, animal dung, yay, or any smells that might scream saber-toothed surprise. You circle the same trail your clan's used for weeks now, a familiar loop around the base of the hill. Familiar means safe-ish, but nature doesn't really do safe. You pause at a large boulder covered in lichen, the perfect spot to climb and scan the valley below. As you hoist yourself up, grunting a little more than you'd like to admit, you glance down at your hands, calloused, filthy, strong. Every scar on your palm has a story. The time you grabbed a fire-heated rock, that bone splinter from skinning a deer, the tiny cut from Rainey's flint scraper when you startled her during sharpening, romantic. From the top, you see it all. The stream glinting like polished quartz, trees crowding thick in the east, animal trails carved into the underbrush like forgotten footnotes. You exhale slowly, half from awe, half from the realization that your bladder is full and there are absolutely no private bushes here. The air carries a hint of rot today, something dead or dying or just lying in wait. A red flag. You jump down and land with a soft thud, startling a cluster of fat birds into panicked flapping. One smacks into Grawl, who swears loudly in a language that technically doesn't exist yet, but still sounds convincing. You crouch to study the ground. Mud holds memories. Indentations where a heavy body passed through, claw marks scratched into the soil. Here, something big, four-legged, deep tracks. Could be a wild bison, or one of those giant prehistoric pigs with faces only a mother could love and tusks that make your spear look like a cocktail toothpick. Fringe theory time. Some believe early humans used subtle scent marking to claim territory. You briefly consider peeing on a tree, then decide, maybe not today.
maybe not in front of Rini, who would never let you live it down. Historians still argue whether Stone Age people maintained a formal perimeter or simply relied on instinct and muscle memory to decide what was ours. What's clear, they watched, constantly. You couldn't afford to tune out. Zoning out while wandering the wild could end with you being a tiger's morning snack. And prehistoric tigers? Not cute, not serial mascots. You pause. Something shifts in the trees. Just a whisper, a rustle that doesn't belong. You hold your breath, finger tightening around the leather of your spear shaft. Rini's already noticed. Her body stiffens, eyes locked ahead. Growls doing that slow turn, the one that means, should I scream or charge? You lower into a crouch, heartbeat steady but loud in your ears. The wind picks up, brushing your skin like the ghost of a warning. Whatever it is, you're not alone anymore.
You creep forward, each footfall deliberate, avoiding branches like your life depends on it, which, charmingly, it might. Rennie moves beside you like she's part of the underbrush. Grawl, on the other hand, crunches a twig so loud you wince. He grunts an apology, or maybe he's just clearing his throat. Either way, stealth is officially compromised. But the forest stills again. Whatever made that noise hasn't doubled back or lunged at your face yet, which feels like a win. Then you see them, tracks, dozens of them, pressed into the soft dirt like nature's version of gossip. You kneel down, brush some pine needles aside. Hooves, narrow and sharp, probably red deer, fresh. You can tell by the definition, clean edges, moist earth, even a bit of lingering animal scent, which hits your nostrils like damp fur mixed with panic. Next to the hooves, smaller marks, something dragged. Maybe a broken leg, or maybe they were chased. That gets your heart tapping a bit faster. And then something weirder. A long groove in the dirt, about 2 hands wide, snaking erratically across the clearing. Not an animal, not a human either, at least not upright. You exchange a glance with Rennie, who raises an eyebrow. Grawl shrugs and pokes at it with his club, like that'll solve anything. Could have been a tree branch dragged along, or something crawling, something wounded, or worse, hunting. Some researchers argue that early predators like direwolves or saber-tooths didn't always attack in open charges. There's evidence they stalked silently, using terrain and patience, just like us, just like now. You rise slowly and follow the prints. The forest here is thicker, damp, shadowy. Birdsong has faded. That's never a good sign. It's like nature just took a deep breath and decided to hold it. Then, scat. You find a steaming pile next to a trampled bush. You wrinkle your nose. The texture is informative. Seeds, fur, bone fragments. This was a meat eater. Definitely not your target deer. Possibly something that eats deer. You step back carefully. Quick tangent. Paleolithic people were basically expert scat readers. Not glamorous, but essential. You could tell what species passed by, how recently, what they ate, whether they were sick, and sometimes even if they were alone or part of a pack. Sherlock Holmes with fewer clothes. A few paces further, you spot something dangling from a low branch. A tuft of coarse brown fur, snagged on bark. Fresh. You lift it with your blade and examine it under the light. Deer, definitely. Maybe the one that left the tracks. Maybe the one that got caught. You hear a rustle, low and close. Your body freezes, like really freezes. Every cell votes to become a rock, just a rock with a bad haircut and a spear. Rennie moves first. She drops to a crouch, draws her throwing stick from her belt. Grawl hoists his club and hunches like he's ready to wrestle whatever's coming, which is Grawl. Classic.
but nothing lunges. The bushes shift one last time and then silence. Historians still argue whether early humans had routines for identifying predator activity or if they just relied on intuition and fear. Judging by your current goosebumps and wide eyes, the fear-based system works just fine. You take a shaky breath. The prints, the groove, the fur, they're all pieces of a puzzle. You're being watched, or something recently was. Either way, you don't want to be next on the menu.
You tighten your grip on the spear, shifting your weight onto the balls of your feet, like maybe that'll help you spring into action, should action be needed. Rini gives a subtle signal, a hand flick, low and sharp. It means move. Grawl, never one for subtlety, lets out a low grunt that probably means the same thing, only with more menace. You fall into a loose triangle formation, slipping through the underbrush as quiet as possible, which, for Grawl, is still about as subtle as a mammoth doing jumping jacks. The air is tense now, coiled like a snake. Somewhere nearby, something is watching, or was. You can feel it on the back of your neck, like a breath that doesn't belong to you. The prints lead down into a shallow valley. It's wetter here. Your feet sink slightly with each step, and the undergrowth gives off a swampy aroma that screams prime place for ambush. Honestly, it smells like your cousin after a week of fermented root mash. You press forward anyway. That's when you spot it. Broken twigs, bent grass, fresh droppings. You gesture. Rini sees it too. The deer didn't just pass through. It's here. Somewhere. You all drop to crouch level and start moving slowly. You've entered hunt mood now. Not the frantic chase kind, but the silent shadow kind. Each movement measured, each breath deliberate. You're trying to be invisible in a world that is constantly scanning for weakness. Early humans weren't just persistence hunters, though yes, that was a thing, running prey down for hours, even days until it dropped from exhaustion. But today's game plan? Stealth, speed, timing. Historians still debate whether hunting in the Paleolithic was more communal strategy or chaotic improvisation. You're currently leaning toward both. Because just as you catch the glint of fur in the distance, right past the mossy log, Grawl's foot hits a loose rock. Crunch. The deer's head whips up. Everything freezes. You barely have time to register its wide, panicked eyes before it bolts. And just like that, you're running. Branches whip past your arms. You leap over roots, skid through muck, crash forward through the reeds. Your lungs burn. Your feet slap the ground, rhythm syncing with your heartbeat, which has officially entered panic drum solo mode. Rini darts ahead, already flanking right. She's terrifyingly fast. Grawl yells, "Why, Grawl?" and barrels through the brush with all the subtlety of a small landslide. The deer zigzags wildly, trying to lose you in the trees, but you're close now. So close you can see the muscles twitching in its haunches. You hurl your spear. It flies true, until a last-minute juke from the deer sends it just left. The spear lands in a bush with a tragic little thunk. Rini's projectile nearly hits it, but again, no dice. And Grawl? Grawl throws his club. It hits a tree. The tree is fine. You all skid to a stop, panting, sweating, suddenly aware that the chase is over and the forest has resumed its quiet judging. "Well," you mutter, hands on your knees, "that went great." You all regroup at a fallen log. No one speaks for a long beat. Then Rini sighs deeply and starts picking twigs out of her hair. Grawl punches a fern. It's okay. Hunts fail more than they succeed. You know this. The clan knows this. But still, it stings a little. You can already hear the teasing from the kids when you return empty-handed.
Some fringe researchers believe failed hunts were still celebrated, learning experiences, bonding moments, rituals in their own way. You choose to believe that, if only to preserve your pride. The good news is, you're still alive. The bad news is, you're still hungry. And the hunt is far from over.
You sit on the fallen log and stare into the woods, as if you can will the deer to wander back and offer itself up for a do-over. It doesn't. Rennie chews on a blade of grass like she's thinking deep thoughts, or maybe just trying to distract herself from the sting of the miss. Grawl squats nearby, muttering in cave guy, which consists mostly of angry vowel sounds and gesturing to nothing in particular. You sigh and retrieve your spear from the bush, inspecting the tip. Still sharp, still sad. It's not the tool's fault, just bad luck, or bad aim, or both. You wipe the dirt from it with your fur wrap and sling it over your shoulder again, pretending not to hear Grawl mimic your throw with exaggerated arm flapping. Rennie snorts. Fine. You deserved that one. But the forest isn't done with you yet. As you catch your breath and recover from the thrill dump, you spot something in the trees. Movement. Low to the ground. Steady. Not panicked like the deer, more methodical. You gesture silently to the others and point. Rennie nods and disappears into the foliage, like a ghost who pays attention in hunting class. Grawl, reluctantly, quiet now, shuffles behind you, keeping low. You edge closer, this time careful not to crack every single twig in a 10-meter radius. And there it is, a wild boar. Snuffling through the undergrowth, tusks twitching, tail flicking with mild irritation at whatever small bugs are annoying it today. Its hide is dark and bristly, its body thick with muscle and bad attitude. Unlike deer, boars don't run as much as they challenge you to question your life choices. They charge, they gore, they do not mess around. You lock eyes with Rennie, who's crouched across the clearing, readying her throwing stick again. You nod, tightening your grip on the spear, and slowly move into flanking position. Grawl is not in position. You glance around. Where is... Crack! A branch breaks. The boar's head snaps up. It snorts aggressively, and then, because why not, it charges right at you. You do not have time to think. Your entire soul screams, nope, but your body is already moving. You sidestep just as the boar barrels past, muscles rippling, eyes wild. Your spear slices through the air, aiming for its side, but the boar jukes, and the point grazes hide, not heart. It squeals, furious, and whirls around. You backpedal fast, almost slipping in the mud. Rennie hurls her throwing stick. It whacks the boar on the shoulder with a dull whoop, more annoying than damaging. Grawl finally shows up, roaring and swinging his club like a man trying to reason with gravity. The boar sees him as the bigger threat, which is fair, and launches forward. Now it's Grawl's turn to scramble. He does a weird hopping sidestep that absolutely no one will let him live down if he survives this. He manages to bring the club down in a hard crack across the boar's spine. The animal stumbles. You charge in, adrenaline surging, and jab your spear into its flank. It screeches, flails, and goes down hard, kicking wildly, before finally collapsing, breath shallow, eyes fluttering. Silence. You pant, frozen for a moment in disbelief. Rennie approaches first, spear in hand, and delivers the final blow. Quick, clean, respectful. You all stand over the body, breathing hard, clothes stained, limbs trembling from the residual jolt
of that could have gone way worse. Fun fact, early humans regularly hunted dangerous prey like wild boar, bison, even elephants. Why? Because the payoff, meat, fat, hides, was worth the risk. But historians still argue whether these hunts were planned attacks or desperate opportunism. Judging by the chaos you just survived, maybe both. Grawl lets out a loud whoop and does a little victory dance that involves more shoulder than necessary. You just sit down in the grass, legs shaking, heart pounding. Stone Age life. You either eat or you get eaten.
You sit there, legs sprawled in the grass like a freshly collapsed marionette, trying to convince your heart to stop impersonating a frantic drum circle. The boar lies a few feet away, motionless now, its tough hide already beginning to cool in the morning air. It looks smaller somehow in death, but only just. Up close, you can still see the deep ridges in its tusks, and the way its muscles ripple even in stillness. Prehistoric pigs were no joke. This one could have flattened you like a fur pancake. Grawl is still vibrating with leftover adrenaline. He paces, gesturing wildly, telling the story of what just happened to absolutely no one, because no one else is here yet. He reenacts the charge using a broken stick as a prop. When he mimics the boar's squeal, you almost forgive him for that whole stepping on a branch thing earlier. Rennie's not watching him. She's already pulling tools from her pouch, practical as ever. A flint blade, a shaped scraper, and a surprisingly dainty bone pin that looks more like a hair accessory than a butchering tool. You glance at her, raise an eyebrow. She shrugs. "For the tendons," she says. "Right, of course." You stand, wobbly, and help roll the boar onto its side. The weight is staggering, easily a couple 100 pounds, maybe more. You're about to carve into a prehistoric dinner buffet, and it smells intense, musky, iron-rich, faintly sour, like a gym sock marinated in victory. You begin the process, slow, careful incisions along the hide to preserve as much as possible. The first cuts always release the deepest sense. You and Rennie work in practiced silence while Grawl keeps a lookout, though he's mostly just flexing his club arm like he expects it to win him a mate later. Historical note: early humans didn't waste a thing. Meat, organs, blood, bones, sinew, it all had a purpose. Some groups even used the bladder as a water container, which makes you suddenly question the pouch Grawl drinks from. But today, the focus is on speed. You need to gut the boar, drain it, and get it back to camp before it attracts scavengers, or worse, predators who aren't picky about who killed what. The smell of blood is basically an all-you-can-eat billboard for every carnivore in a 10-mile radius. You slice through the abdomen carefully. The guts slither out with a wet plop, steaming slightly in the cold air. You and Rennie exchange a glance. Time to move fast. You scoop some of the organs into a leather sling, separating edible from inedible. Well, mostly edible. There's still debate on whether some groups preferred raw liver as a delicacy or just endured it to prove toughness. You hope it's the latter, because you're not licking that thing again. Grawl pokes at the heart, eyes gleaming. He always claims it gives him strength. You're pretty sure it just gives him heartburn. Still, you cut it free and hand it to him. He grins and immediately starts chewing. You shudder. The fringe detail? Some tribes believed eating the heart passed on the animal spirit, the strength, the memory, the boreness, if you will. Was it symbolic? Nutritional? Magical? Historians are still chewing that one over. Pun absolutely intended. With the body now lightened, you each take a side and hoist it onto a long pole made from a straight branch. You grunt under the weight. It's going to be a slow trudge home. But this time, you're not dragging your feet in failure. You're bringing dinner. You heave the weight of the boar over your shoulder, muscles straining under the sheer prehistoric heaviness of it all. The pole digs into your skin, the hide slick with fresh blood, already attracting flies that move with the speed and enthusiasm of creatures that really don't need that much protein in their diet. The world smells like copper, sweat, and swamp mud. You're a walking nose offense. Rennie leads the way back, and Grawl trails behind, dragging his club like a slightly smug caveman janitor. He's humming, if you can call one long, low note a hum. It's his victory song. You hate how catchy it is. The terrain you breeze through on the way out now seems suspiciously steeper, more root-covered, and filled with things poking your ankles. You adjust your grip on the pole again, trying not to let the boar's leg knock your knee for the 10th time. Your shoulders numb, your hands are sticky, and every mosquito in the county has declared open season on your exposed neck. You pass back through the patch of forest where the deer tracks were. The prints are fainter now in the warming light, but the memory of that chase is still fresh. So is the reminder that you're not always the apex predator around here, not by a long shot. Then comes the sound, that snap. Not a twig underfoot, something bigger, heavier. All three of you stop mid-step. The forest hushes again, that unnatural silence that's never followed by anything good. You scan the trees. Nothing. Rennie slowly reaches for her throwing stick. Grawl lifts his club, eyes narrowed, no longer humming. You adjust your grip on the pole because if you're about to die, you'd at least like to go down not covered in boar guts. Dignity and all that. There's another sound. Closer this time. A low, rasping grunt, like a cough from something with way too many teeth. You know that sound. Everyone does. Cat. Saber-toothed. You lock eyes with Rennie, then Grawl. No words. Just the understanding that if it's hungry, it's fast, and the boar you're hauling is basically a scented invitation to dinner, with you as the side dish. You don't run. Not yet. Running means triggering the chase, and prehistoric cats, they live for the chase. Instead, you start walking faster, very casually. Like, nope, nothing to see here, just some apex hunters heading home with groceries. Behind you, the bushes rustle. Then, silence again. Historians still argue whether early humans used scent-masking strategies, rubbing mud or specific plants onto themselves, or simply relied on timing and sheer luck. If it's the latter, you're placing a very generous bet on luck right now. You pick up the pace. Branches slap your arms, your lungs start to burn. The boar swings awkwardly, throwing off your balance. You risk a glance over your shoulder. Still nothing. Then, movement. A flicker of shadow across the rocks. You can't tell if it's stalking or circling. Either way, it's watching, waiting. You reach the clearing that signals you're close to camp. You can almost smell the fire, almost hear the chatter of the kids flinging beetles at each other. That means safety, numbers, more spears, less teeth. Grawl lets out a low growl, not at you, but at the forest. A warning, maybe a dare. The bushes rustle once more, and then fades. Whatever it was has decided to live another day, or maybe let you live another day. You don't stop moving until you hit the familiar edge of the camp trail. Then, finally, you exhale, deep, ragged, triumphant. The wild blinked first,
By the time you stumble back into the outer perimeter of camp, your arms feel like wet ropes, your legs are complaining in languages they've never spoken before, and the boar smells significantly more pungent. Grawl lets the pole clatter to the ground with a theatrical grunt, wipes his brow with the back of his hand, and strikes a pose that says, "Yes, I am the reason we eat tonight." Reenie just drops her gear and heads straight for the water skin without a word. She's not here for applause, she's here for hydration. You take a moment to breathe, to stretch your shoulders, which crack like you've just hatched from a particularly aggressive egg. Then you look up and realize that your triumphant return is being met with a solid wall of blank stares. The rest of the clan is clustered near the fire, eyeing the boar with curiosity, hunger, and that familiar undertone of, "Really? You brought back another one of those?" No cheers, no slow clap, not even a congratulatory rock toss. This, of course, is normal. In fact, some anthropologists believe early humans didn't make a big deal about successful hunts because every meal was a temporary win against a relentless survival clock. You didn't celebrate, you prepared. You pick up a stick and nudge the boar's back leg like, "Ta-da!" Someone finally nods and an elder limps over, inspecting the kill with all the enthusiasm of someone appraising a slightly dented fruit. He pokes at the wound, sniffs it, and gives a satisfied grunt. Stamp of approval, cave style. Then come the questions. Not spoken, obviously. This isn't a gossip brunch. But you can read the expressions. Was it alone? Was it fat? Did it almost kill you? Yes. You start miming the story, the charge, the missed deer, the near mauling. Grawl jumps in halfway through, performing a dramatic reenactment that somehow features more leaping and roaring than you remember actually happening. Reenie watches with half-lidded eyes and a slight smirk, still sipping water like she's trying not to spit it out. The kids are the most enthusiastic. One of them pokes the boar in the snout and squeals when it flops slightly. Another starts making oinking noises and running in circles. You're not sure if it's admiration or mocking, but hey, audience is audience. The hide needs curing, the meat needs to be cleaned and roasted, and you still need to deal with the gut sack tied to your belt. Reenie holds hers up, and the women tasked with processing approach. You hand yours over, glad to be rid of the sloshing, stinking weight. One of them pulls out the kidneys and gives them a sniff, nods approvingly, and then hands the bladder to a teen, who clearly just lost a bet. You finally plop yourself down on a pile of furs, rubbing your shoulder and trying to look more heroic than exhausted. It's then you realize you're still starving. You brought home a boar, risked your life, danced with death, and now you get to nibble on a charred tuber and wait another hour for the good stuff. Fringe tidbit. There's evidence that high-status members of the clan got first pick of the meat. Liver, heart, tongue. You're somewhere in the middle of the pecking order, meaning you'll get ribs if you're lucky, skin scraps if you're not, and a good story either way. Grawl flops down next to you and offers you a bite of something vaguely edible. You take it. It tastes like charcoal and effort. Still, you're alive. And foolish, which is more than most wild boars can say.
By now, the camp smells like smoke, sweat, and sizzling fat, arguably the holy trinity of Paleolithic comfort. The boar is slowly being prepped over the fire, suspended on a spit that groans under the weight. A few of the older clan members poke at the meat with sticks, offering helpful grunts and the occasional unsolicited advice. It's the ancient version of, "Are you sure it's done?" You, meanwhile, are chewing on what passes for an appetizer. A dried root that's part starch, part dirt, and entirely underwhelming. It crunches like gravel and tastes faintly of disappointment. Still, it's better than nothing. Your stomach is making ominous noises, which might be hunger or your digestive system staging a protest. A few gatherers return from their foraging rounds, arms filled with leafy greens, wrinkled berries, and some kind of bulb that smells like a swamp's armpit. They spread the haul out on flat stones, sorting through the edible, the risky, and the maybe let the dog try it first pile. You shuffle over, intrigued. One of the women hands you something that looks like a mushroom but is suspiciously neon orange. You raise an eyebrow. She shrugs. You shrug. Prehistoric nutrition in action. In truth, midday meals weren't exactly planned. Historians still argue whether Paleolithic humans ate in structured meals like we do, or simply grazed whenever something chewable appeared. Based on current vibes, it's the latter. You see someone biting into a frog leg. You see someone else chewing on pine bark. You quietly choose neither, and opt for a roasted beetle that someone dropped near the fire. Crunchy, nutty, a little chewy. Honestly, not terrible. The oldest woman in the clan waddles over and smacks a younger forager's hand away from a suspicious berry cluster. She mimes gagging, then death. Everyone laughs, but the message is clear. One wrong snack, and it's curtains, or at least several hours of very aggressive diarrhea. Still, it's not all caution and fear. Some of the berries are edible and sweet, at least by caveman standards. You pop one into your mouth and try not to flinch at the sharp tang. It's like nature tried to make candy but got distracted halfway through and added vinegar. Nearby, a kid proudly holds up a handful of wriggling grubs. He offers you one. You decline. He pops it in his mouth with the defiant confidence of someone who doesn't yet fear intestinal regret. And then there's the tea, or what passes for it, a hot infusion of pine needles, wild mint, and something that smells like dirt after rain. It's handed around in a hollowed-out gourd. You sip it cautiously. It tastes like chewing a Christmas tree. But it's warm, comforting even. Fringe detail for the night. Some researchers believe that early humans occasionally fasted on purpose, not for spiritual reasons, but as a survival training method. Voluntary hunger to prepare for involuntary famine. You admire the logic, then immediately decide you'd be terrible at that. You stretch your legs out and lean back, watching the smoke rise into the early afternoon sky. Your belly is still not full, but it's no longer empty either. You're sitting in the lull between chaos and digestion. The fire crackles, someone birches in the distance, and a kid tries to juggle 2 eggs and a stone. It ends exactly as you expect.
You ease yourself up from the fur pile with all the grace of a log rolling off a cart. Your joints crack like old firewood, and your stomach lets out one last sigh that clearly translates to, "Fine, I guess we won't die this hour." You glance around camp. The boars still roasting, the smoke curling lazily into the sky, and the elders have entered their post-snack nap phase, which involves snoring so synchronized it could be mistaken for a religious chant. But you've been recruited for gathering duty. Yes, congratulations. Because you didn't die on the hunt and your throwing arm still functions, you get to tag along with the gatherers this afternoon. You thought dodging wild pigs and saber-toothed was exciting? Welcome to the surprisingly chaotic world of prehistoric botany, where every berry might be food or death. You fall in behind Mira, one of the clan's best plant identifiers. She can spot edible moss from 30 paces and knows which fungi will make you see cave spirits and which will make you become one. Following her is a masterclass in cautious optimism. The forest in this direction is quieter, lusher. A cool breeze rustles through the leaves, and birds chirp in melodic little warnings. You and the others, 3 women, 1 older boy, and a child who insists on naming every mushroom Greg fan out in a loose sweep. The task? Find tubers, mushrooms, roots, and herbs. Avoid venomous snakes, stinging bugs, and anything brightly colored that smells like regret. You drop to your knees beside a bush and start poking at the soil with a bone digger. The ground here is damp, soft, and filled with promise. A few pokes in, you feel something bulbous. You wiggle your fingers down and pull. Success! A root. Possibly edible, possibly not. You hold it up. Mira looks over and gives you the rare, coveted nod of approval. According to some fringe theories, early gatherers developed complex mental maps of plant locations and seasonal behavior. You can barely remember where you left your spare flint scraper, so that's impressive. Further along, you spot what looks like a jackpot. Dozens of mushrooms clustered at the base of a tree. Round, white, innocent-looking. You pause, remembering what happened to the last guy who tried the innocent mushrooms. He spent 3 hours dancing with a stick and then tried to marry a tree stump. Still, food is food. You pluck one and hold it out. Mira saunters over, sniffs it, and grimaces so hard it looks like her face is trying to leave. She gently takes it from your hand and places it into the absolutely not basket, which already contains several spiky fruits, a glowing fungus, and one very aggressive-looking caterpillar. You try again. A few more roots, some berries that don't burn your tongue, a leafy herb that smells like bad breath but might help digestion. The kid, Greg, mushroom, comes running over with a log covered in tiny insects. He insists they taste like nuts. You let him keep that discovery to himself. Historians still argue whether women were the primary gatherers while men hunted, or whether duties were more fluid and based on skill rather than gender. Either way, one thing's for sure: these gatherers are efficient, fast, observant. You blink and someone's already plucked an entire armful of tubers while you're still deciding whether this moss looks too ambitious. By the time the sun dips a little lower, your baskets are filled, your knees are muddy, and you've only touched your face with poison ivy once. Progress.
You shuffle through the brush, arms full of roots and questionably clean leaves, trailing the rest of the gatherers like the world's most confused salad. The light has shifted, still golden, but with that late afternoon slant that whispers, tick-tock, predator o'clock. You quicken your pace. Mira glances over and grunts approvingly, or maybe she's just clearing her throat with authority. Hard to tell. Ahead, the others are crouched around a cluster of low shrubs. You step closer and see why. They found berries. Not the bitter, mouth-drying kind you had this morning, but fat, dark purple globes hanging heavy on the branches. They glisten like promise. You reach out to pluck one, but Mira stops you with a firm tap on your wrist. She picks one herself, peels back the skin with a bone chip, and sniffs the juice before tasting the tiniest drop with the tip of her tongue. A moment passes, she nods. You're in the clear. You eat one. It bursts in your mouth with sharp sweetness, the juice staining your fingers and lips like you've just bitten into art. You groan softly. Is this what joy tasted like in the Paleolithic? Because yes it is. Still, you proceed carefully. Some berries look delicious but hit your gut like a club full of regret. That bright red one you found earlier? Yeah, that's the prehistoric equivalent of roulette. Some researchers believe early humans learned to identify poisonous plants not only through trial and error, but by watching animals. If the monkey eats it and doesn't immediately fall over, you're probably okay. Probably. You wander a bit from the group, your basket getting heavier and your confidence climbing. You spot a shady patch under a tree with what looks like a tuber poking out. Jackpot. You kneel, dig it up, sniff it. Smells earthy. That's a good start. You give it a cautious lick. Tastes like a rock had a midlife crisis and became a vegetable. Then you hear the sound. A slap. Then a squish.
then a low vibrating croak. You turn. There it is. A frog. No, the frog. Big, bulbous, glowing slightly green in the fading light. You lock eyes with it. It blinks. You blink. The world blinks. This isn't just any frog. Greg the Mushroom Kid appears behind you, wide-eyed. "That's the vision frog," he whispers, like you've stumbled into legend. "Touch it and you'll see the sky speak." You back away slowly. Some fringe archaeologists speculate that certain tribes intentionally sought out hallucinogenic animals for spiritual rituals. Others think people just got really bored and licked stuff to see what happened. Either way, you're not licking the frog. Not today, not again. You scoop up your roots, carefully avoid the glowing amphibian, and rejoin the others. Mira raises an eyebrow when you return. You just hold up the tuber and smile like you totally didn't almost trip into a vision quest. As the sun sinks behind the hills, the group begins the walk back. Baskets full, shoulders sore, bellies not quite satisfied, but better than they were. You feel a strange pride. Gathering isn't glamorous, but you're fed, unpoisoned, and untouched by psychic frogs. That's a win.
The walk back to camp is slower, quieter. Everyone's tired, pleasantly sore, and carrying baskets full of nature's weirdest appetizers. The sun slips low across the sky, casting golden rays through the trees and giving everything that overly romantic glow, like the forest is trying to make up for the whole deadly predators and poisonous berries thing. You're hauling a load of roots and tubers over one shoulder when you feel something squishy in your palm. You glance down. A frog. Not the frog, thankfully, but one that clearly thought your hand was a nice place for a break. You gently flick it off. It lands in the underbrush with a wet plop, possibly offended. The group stops for a break at the edge of a small clearing where a few thin trees cluster near a fallen log. Mira settles down and begins sorting through the foraged goods. You plop onto the log with a groan and rub your lower back. Somewhere behind you, a child starts humming a tuneless song about moss. You consider joining in, but it sounds dangerously close to a curse. Your next job? Firewood. Because, as always, someone forgot that food plus fire equals not salmonella. You rise reluctantly and start gathering sticks. Dry ones, ideally, though half of what you find is soggy or crawling with prehistoric bugs that have more legs than personal boundaries. You spot a downed tree limb and reach for it. As you tug, something moves underneath. You freeze. A writhing mass of mushrooms, beetles, and some kind of worm that looks like it's rethinking its life choices squiggles out. You sigh. This is what survival looks like. Half meal prep, half pest control. Still, you snag a few of the fatter mushrooms. Rennie once mentioned this variety turns nutty and savory when roasted. Or maybe she said nutty then savages your guts. Honestly, the accent is hard to interpret when someone's chewing a cricket while talking. Back at the clearing, one of the foragers has started a fire with a bit of flint and dry grass. The smell of smoke curls up into the trees, and you add your sticks to the pile, toss in the mushrooms, and sit close enough to warm your knees without roasting your eyebrows. Someone has already started roasting a frog. It's unclear if they asked the frog first. You nibble on a roasted grub, crunchy on the outside, gooey in the center, sort of like prehistoric gushers if you squint emotionally. It's not bad. You could get used to this, or at least tolerate it until something tastier comes along, like, say, anything? Fringe fact for the moment. Some early humans used burnt frog skins as makeshift sunscreen. Yeah. Turns out crocodile dung wasn't the only weird skincare product on the shelf. Protection from the sun, spirits, and probably social interaction. The wind picks up a little, rustling the leaves overhead. You lean back on your elbows, watching sparks from the fire drift upward like lazy fireflies.
The foragers joke quietly, arguing about which root is best for stomach aches and which one accidentally causes stomach explosions. Historians still debate how much of this herbal knowledge was scientific versus passed down myth. Truth is, a little of both. You learn what works, or someone else does, spectacularly. With baskets mostly empty and stomachs mostly full, the group begins packing up. The fire is doused with dirt, the coals stirred. You sling your foraging sack over your shoulder, now much lighter, and begin the walk back to camp. The trees hum, the sky burns orange. And you? You're walking the ancient, muddy path home with wood smoke in your hair and fungus in your teeth. It's a vibe.
You return to camp with the low sun kissing the treetops and painting the cave entrance in deep golds and sleepy purples. It's that in-between time, past the chaos of the hunt, not quite into the calm of evening. The kind of moment where everyone pretends they're not exhausted and tries not to sit down too hard, because they might not get back up again. The fire's been stoked, the boar's now sizzling in earnest, and someone's even managed to hang a few gut-cleaned pieces of meat on a rack made of sticks and stubborn optimism. It smells like smoke, char, and animal fat, a prehistoric perfume no one talks about but everyone secretly loves. You wander over to the stream just past the clearing, your hands still stained with mushroom spores, your arms striped with scratches, and your nose catching the faintest whiff of something amphibian. You kneel at the edge and dip your fingers into the water. It's cold, clear, fast. You splash your face, and the chill hits like a slap from a ghost crab. It's glorious. Rini joins you silently, flopping down beside a boulder with her feet in the stream. She's already cleaning her flint blade with smooth strokes, the water running red, then clear, then red again. You pull your own blade from its hide sheath and begin the same process, careful not to nick your fingers this time. You still remember the last time. Infection is not the vibe. As you scrub the grime from the blade, you notice a nick in the edge. You pull your sharpening stone from your belt pouch and begin to grind. The sound is rhythmic, like sandpaper kissing a glacier. It soothes something in your brain. Even Grawl, who lumbers over with his usual heavy-footed grace, seems calmer here. He drops beside the water and pulls out what you swear is the same club he's been sharpening for 3 years. It's still a club. Somehow more threatening, but still, just a club. You all fall into a sort of quiet ritual, sharpening, rinsing, humming. Rini pulls a splinter of obsidian from her pouch and holds it up to the fading light. It glints with that signature glassy sheen. Obsidian, nature's razor. So sharp it can slice through skin with terrifying ease. Some cultures used it in rituals, others just liked how it made everything bleed slightly faster. You turn your attention to a piece of deer antler tucked into your belt. You've been carving notches into it, one for each successful hunt. It's mostly decorative, but also a tally, a personal story etched in bone. You add a new notch now, the motion slow and deliberate. This one's for the boar. A win, even if your shoulder still aches. Some fringe theories suggest early humans used carvings like this to count time or track lunar cycles. Others think it was just a way to show off. Hey, look how many things I've stabbed and survived to brag about it. Nearby, Gred the Mushroom Kid is skipping stones. Badly. One of his skips directly hits a frog. The frog just sits there, unimpressed, like it's seen worse. The sun is barely peeking over the ridge now, and the sky shifts from pink to bruised blue. The air grows cooler, the kind of cool that whispers you'll want a fire and a fur blanket very soon. You rinse your tools one final time, stand up and stretch. Your back pops audibly. Rini mimics the sound with her mouth and smirks. The clan's calling. Meat's ready. And after a day like this, you've earned your place by the fire, with your tools sharp, your belly rumbling, and your antler a notch heavier.
You return to camp with a bit more bounce in your step. or at least enough bounce to mask the part of you that's running on fumes and stubbornness. Smoke coils into the cooling air, mingling with the rich scent of sizzling boar, damp fur, and something someone's trying to ferment in a hollow lug. You decide not to ask. You're about to claim your seat near the fire when something catches your eye. A flicker on the far wall of the cave. Not firelight, not movement. Something carved. Something new. You walk toward it slowly, stepping over half-curled furs and a pile of sticks that might be a future chair or just chaos waiting to happen. There it is, etched into the rock. Fresh lines in the suit's staining surface. Crude but deliberate. A circle. A spiral. A pattern of slashes forming a shape that might be a tree or an animal or... honestly, it could be someone's attempt at a mammoth's behind. You reach out, run your fingers over the grooves. The stone is cool. The scratch is still slightly chalky. Someone did this today. Rini wanders over behind you, arms crossed, chewing on a twig like she's trying to decode both the symbol and the artist's emotional state. She tilts her head. Yours? You shake your head. Growl grunts from behind you, mouthful of boar. Looks like a bear sat on a bush. He's not wrong. The carving is strange, stylized. Not a hunt scene. Not the usual guy with spear, animal running away motif. It feels different. Maybe symbolic. Maybe just bad art. Historians still debate the purpose of these early carvings. Were they records? Warnings? Doodles during a slow stew night? Some think they were ritualistic, meant to honor the spirits. Others believe they marked territory, or simply help teach younger clan members what not to poke with a stick. You step back and squint. The spiral shape inside the figure intrigues you. Some cultures associated spirals with time, seasons, or the cycle of life. Or maybe someone got bored during babysitting duty and decided to leave a legacy. Fringe theory time. Certain researchers believe cave markings were sometimes left by individuals in trance-like states, altered by sleep deprivation, fasting, or, let's say, adventurous mushroom consumption. Which could explain why half the figures on the far wall have 6 fingers and one particularly smug expression. You think back to earlier. Greg and the frog, the glowing moss, the weird berry that made your tongue numb for half an hour. This whole day has had an odd vibe energy. Mira joins the group near the wall and studies the carving in silence. After a moment, she draws a line in the dust beneath it, a simple path, leading from the shape toward the cave entrance. A message? You all look at one another, heads tilting at similar confused angles. Growl tries to poke the carving with his club. Rini slaps his hand away. Eventually, the group drifts back toward the fire, muttering half-jokes about sky spirits and stone graffiti. But the image lingers in your mind. It's not threatening. It's not even particularly good, but it feels like a question. One someone carved into the world, waiting for someone else to answer. You take one last look before heading back toward the warmth. The fire's calling, the meat's almost done, and the clan is waiting with full stomachs and half stories. Still, the spiral stays with you. Some marks don't just decorate. They whisper.
The fire crackles, its smoke curling toward the cave's ceiling and mingling with the low murmur of voices, tired laughter, and the occasional crunch of bone being split for marrow. You're wedged comfortably between 2 warm fur piles, chewing slowly on a piece of boar that tastes like soot, salt, and triumph. It's not just food, it's proof. Proof that you made it through another day without being eaten,
trampled, or accidentally licking anything hallucinogenic. So far. Across from you, the elders have taken their usual positions. Half circle around the brightest part of the fire, leaning on walking sticks, stone stools, or just each other. Their skin is thick and lined like cracked bark, their eyes reflecting firelight and the kind of knowledge that only comes from surviving long enough to feel wise and cranky at the same time. Then the talking begins. Not gossip, though, let's be honest, you've heard them roast each other with more savagery than a lion on leg day, but the serious stuff. Sky talk. It always starts with one of the older women, Tarka. She's missing 3 fingers and claims it's because she once caught lightning with her bare hands. She points to the sky with a chicken bone and begins a slow, rhythmic chant, low and grainy like gravel rolling across old parchment. It's not about weather. It's not even about time. It's about the spirits. Tonight's theory? Thunder is the growling of angry sky beasts, and rain is their spit. Lightning? The sparks they shoot when arguing. Someone challenges this, mildly, and suggests maybe thunder is just the sky falling apart a little. There's a pause. The group nods solemnly. Both seem reasonable. Historians still argue over how much Paleolithic people mythologized natural phenomena. Were the stories metaphor? Religion? Just something to help frightened kids and adults sleep through a thunderstorm without sobbing into mammoth pelts? You sip from a cup made of horn. Water, slightly flavored with bark. Delicious. The discussion continues, meandering between sky spirits, the glowing frog, and the recent carving. Someone claims the spiral means we're being watched. Another says it's a warning from cave gods not to mess with the mushrooms again. Someone else suggests it's just an early attempt at a butt drawing. Honestly, that one feels the most accurate. The fire snaps loud, and everyone flinches, then laughs, nervously. Grawl tries to save face by loudly declaring, "Fire spirit hungry," and tosses in another log. You try not to roll your eyes. Barely succeed. Then comes the fringe moment of the night. Old Crawl claims he once spoke to the moon. Not metaphorically, he insists the moon blinked at him, then showed him how to carve a fishhook from bat bone. He holds up said fishhook. It does look suspiciously like a bent twig, but no one challenges him. You don't mess with moon whisperers. Rennie leans over and mutters, "Next he'll say the stars taught him how to dance." You snort into your bark-flavored water. But under the humor, there's something real here. Something steadying. In a world where everything is dangerous, uncertain, and frequently damp, these stories are anchors. They make the wind more than just wind. They make the lightning less terrifying. They turn the unknowable into bedtime conversation. The elders fall silent eventually. The fire dies lower, crackling like it's dreaming. You feel the warmth soak into your bones, the stories buzzing softly in your head. Up above, the stars blink through the cave entrance. You wonder, just for a moment, are they blinking back?
You wake from your fire nap with a drool line on your chin and the vague sense that your ancestors are judging you from the stars. Your neck creaks as you sit upright, somehow colder, stiffer, and hungrier than you thought possible for someone who just ate a fist-sized chunk of roasted boar and passed out like a warm potato sack. But something has changed. There's movement near the edge of the clearing, low and quick. You tense, hand reaching instinctively for your spear, only to realize you left it by the entrance. Excellent. You're currently armed with a half-chewed root and the confidence of someone who thinks they can win a staring contest with a raccoon. Then you see them. Two silhouettes emerging from the trees. Familiar, dirt-smeared, triumphant. The second hunting group has returned, and they're dragging a boar-sized bundle wrapped in hide and netting, its legs jutting out like prehistoric luggage. The clan stirs as if one organism. Heads lift, grunts echo. Someone drops a gourd in surprise. This is big. You rise to your feet, now wide awake, and head toward the commotion. Rennie appears beside you like a particularly quiet shadow. "That's a lot of meat," she murmurs, eyebrows raised. You nod. Even Grawl, mid-bone gnaw, lets out an appreciative, "Huh." The returning hunters grin, bloody, tired, and full of swagger. The eldest of the group, Don, gestures dramatically at the bundle. "Forest gift," he declares with a raspy voice. You think he means they earned it, but maybe he's just being humble. Or weird. Don once insisted he could smell fruit 2 days before it ripened. He might be onto something. Or just sniffing plants too often. The bundle is unwrapped, revealing a shaggy wild boar, this one even fatter than the one you helped bring in earlier. There's a collective gasp, followed by the sound of 20 bellies simultaneously making plans. Within minutes, the cave is an organized chaos. People rush to fetch knives, bone saws, spit rods, and large flat rocks for butchering. Smoke thickens, the air fills with the sound of slicing, sizzling, and animated chewing. Honestly, it smells amazing, like if bacon and success had a baby and raised it over an open fire. You pitch in where you can, helping strip the hide, sort the organs, and keep the curious kids from poking things they shouldn't. Greg the mushroom kid is back, now insisting the boar spirit is watching from the sky. You politely nod, then nudge him away from the kidney pile. Fact check break. Boars weren't just meat, they were utility animals. Their bones became needles, owls, fish hooks. The hide could be scraped, softened, and turned into leather wraps or drum skins. Historians still argue whether the musical instruments we've found were for ceremony, communication, or just really loud late-night jam sessions. The mood is different now. Lighter. 2 kills in one day? That's rare, maybe even unheard of. You glance around and see it in everyone's faces. The gleam in the eye, the swagger in the step, the way even old Crawl is doing a stiff little jig near the fire like his knees got rebooted. You chew a fresh slice of meat, juices dribbling down your chin, and laugh, genuinely, freely. It's the laugh of someone full, warm, and briefly without the threat of being trampled by dinner. For now, you've won. And the night is yours.
The cave is glowing now, lit by multiple fires dancing in sync like ancient lava lamps. You sit cross-legged near the main pit, gnawing on a chunk of shoulder meat that's somehow both overcooked and underdone. Truly, a culinary feat. Grease drips down your wrist. You don't care. Hygiene is a tomorrow problem. Beside you, Rennie is carefully sorting the organ pile, handing the good bits to Mira, and tossing the questionable bits into a communal basket ominously labeled with a pine cone. You learned long ago, never eat from the pine cone basket. That's where intestines, mystery glands, and other anatomical puzzle pieces go to get experimented on. You're tasked with helping prep the remaining edible parts, which mostly means sorting meat from meh. You use your bone-handled knife, the one with the tiny bear tooth tied up the hilt for good luck. It was your father's. Or maybe it just came from a trade with a particularly superstitious goat herder. Honestly, the story keeps changing depending on who you ask. As you work, the cave begins to fill with a steady hum of voices, laughter, and, of course, arguing. The elders are bickering over how best to roast the liver. One insists it must be wrapped in leaves and placed under coals. Another swears the gods prefer it lightly seared on a flat stone, sprinkled with powdered antler marrow. Someone else suggests, "Just eat it raw, you cowards." That gets a few chuckles and one horrified child shrieking in mock terror. You can't help but smile.
This is what victory looks like in the Stone Age. Slightly burnt meat, heated debates about food temperature, and an ever-present undertone of, "We did not die today." You get the honor of gutting the second boar's stomach. You brace yourself. It's not glamorous. It's warm. It's slimy. It's the kind of job that makes you question your career choices, even though careers haven't technically been invented yet. Still, there's a rhythm to it. Slice, scoop, sort, sigh. Rennie hands you a charred gourd filled with herb water to rinse your hands. The liquid is brown, smells like boiled bark, and stings like it's judging you. You endure. Then comes the ceremonial moment, handing off the heart. Every successful hunt ends with this. The heart, symbolic and literal center of the beast, is offered to the clan's oldest member. Tonight, that's Tarka. She accepts it with both hands, eyes gleaming in the firelight, and raises it toward the cave ceiling. A few of the children chant something half-remembered in slightly off-key. "Heart of beast, strength of tree, keep our bones where they should be." It's not poetic, but it rhymes in cave common, so it gets a pass. Fringe belief alert. Some early groups believed eating the heart could transfer more than strength. It could pass on memory, the boar's path, its last thoughts, even its dreams. Historians still argue whether these rites were sincere, or if someone once licked a bad mushroom and got too creative with storytelling. Tarka bites into the heart, deliberate, slow, red juice dribbling down her chin. The clan erupts in applause. Someone toots on a bone whistle, another slaps two shells together in celebration. It's Stone Age applause, chaotic but heartfelt. You finally sit back, full, soot-covered, and weirdly proud of your messy hands and sore feet. The fire pops. Sparks leap into the dark like tiny shooting stars. Dinner is done. And for now, life is good.
The cave is buzzing now, thick with smoke and satisfaction. Bellies are round, fingers are greasy, and there's a collective, slightly dazed look in everyone's eyes. The universal sign for meat coma. You lean back against the rock wall, hands folded across your stomach, watching the flames flicker and blur as the heat warps the air above the fire. Grawl is on his second helping of ribs, even though his first helping is still stuck in his beard. Reenie's roasting something suspiciously foot-shaped and refusing to tell anyone what it is. Mira's gently poking at a flat stone lined with beetles, murmuring to herself like she's trying to decide whether she's about to invent croutons or just lose her appetite. Then, of course, there's Tarka, full of heart and ancient wisdom, now slumped beside the fire, humming what sounds like the recipe for "Don't touch that, it's poisonous," set to the rhythm of a war drum. It's oddly catchy. And just when you think the night is about to wind down, someone starts juggling. It's always like this. The second people feel fed, safe, and warm, their brains start saying things like, "You know what this moment needs? Danger." Krell, a wiry teen with more confidence than balance, picks up 3 round stones, still warm from the edge of the fire, and begins tossing them into the air with a flourish. The first few tosses go well, then the third rock decides gravity is non-negotiable and drops squarely on his foot. He yelps. Everyone laughs. A good, hearty, "we're not being mauled right now" kind of laugh. You can't help but join in. The moment is ridiculous and perfect. Someone pulls out the drum. Well, drum-like object, stretched animal hide over a wooden frame beaten with bone sticks. The rhythm starts slow, primal, the kind of beat that makes your chest vibrate. Then someone joins in with a reed flute that has exactly 2 notes, both slightly off-key. Beautiful. The kids start dancing in the dirt near the fire, stomping, spinning, occasionally falling over with flair. Greg, the mushroom kid, performs an interpretive dance,
that may or may not involve a spirit entering his left leg. Everyone cheers. You're pulled into it, the energy infectious. You don't remember standing, but here you are, half dancing, half wobbling, doing your best to keep time with the beat and avoid stepping on coals. Your arms swing, your feet stump, your inner voice screams, "This is how injuries happen," but you ignore it. Fringe fact of the night, some archaeologists believe dancing around fires was part of ritual celebrations, sometimes linked to successful hunts, moon phases, or just sheer joy. Others argue it was a form of early exercise to help digest overly fatty meat. Honestly, why not both? Grawl tries to outdo everyone with a dramatic stomp-spin combo that ends in a loud thud as he lands squarely in a basket of foraged roots. He throws both hands up in victory. Applause erupts. One of the elders mutters something about how, "This is why we don't trust the young with tubers." Then, without warning, the mood shifts slightly. The rhythm softens, the kids grow quiet, the fire pops gently, like it too is settling in for the night. One by one, people begin to retreat to their furs. A few stay behind, curled close to the embers, chatting in low voices or just staring at the flames like they might reveal the meaning of life if you look long enough. You stretch, pop your spine like it owes you rent, and make your way to your sleeping spot. Your limbs are tired, your heart is full, your mouth still tastes faintly of something smoky and mysterious, probably frog adjacent. It's been a good night, and you didn't set anything on fire. This time. The fire's burned low now, its flicker reduced to a soft orange pulse that dances lazily on the cave walls. You're sprawled out on your fur pile, limbs stretched, skin still warm from the heat of dinner and the mild cardio of not quite graceful dancing. Your breath is slow, steady. Everything aches in that oddly satisfying, "I didn't die today" kind of way. Then you hear it, the storyteller's grunt. Not a loud one, not demanding, but firm. The kind of grunt that says, "I have something to say, and it's going to involve mammoths." You sit up a little straighter, pulling your fur around your shoulders like a prehistoric burrito blanket. Around the fire, others do the same. Even the kids hush, which is the kind of miracle that makes you believe in sky gods. The storyteller, old Renkar, is already crouched by the glowing coals. His skin is stretched tight over sharp cheekbones, hair wild and white, eyes gleaming like he's got stars tucked behind his eyelids. He lifts a stick, blackened on one end, and begins drawing in the ash. A crude figure, a human, then another, a massive beast, trunk raised, tusks flared. Mammoth. Yes, here we go. Renkar begins the tale in rhythm, a chant, a growl, a rasp that turns into words only when you lean in close enough. His voice cracks like burning wood, soft but sharp, laced with smoke and memory. It's a story you've heard before, but that's not the point. Stories like this aren't meant to be new, they're meant to be yours. He tells of a time when the world was colder, when snow swallowed the land for moons at a time, and the clan hunted mammoth across the ice flats. He mimics the movements, the stalking, the chase, the ambush from behind boulders with sharpened spears and howling voices. Someone pounds the earth for thunder, someone else mimics the call of the mammoth, a low, rumbling roar that vibrates your ribs. He describes the mammoth's eyes, intelligent, sad, like it knew its time was ending. You shiver. Historians still debate how myth and memory blended for early humans. Was every story based on something real? Or were these epics stitched together from whispers, dreams, and the bones of beasts long gone? Renkar keeps going. How the mammoth fell, how the earth shook, how the blood steamed on snow like breath from a spirit. The hunter who dealt the final blow, blessed by the sky itself, or cursed, depending on who you ask. Some stories end with glory, others with warnings dressed as legend. Then he shifts tones. Now he's telling the tale of skyfire, the strange light that fell from the stars and turned rock to glass. Obsidian, maybe, or just a very shiny rock someone mistook for divine. Either way, it cut sharper than flint and was too rare to waste. He holds up a piece now, catching the faint fire glow. It gleams like midnight trapped in stone. Greg, the mushroom kid, gasps like it's a sacred artifact. Someone next to you mutters, "It's a knife." Renkar pretends not to hear. Fringe idea? Some scholars suggest early humans revered unique stones like obsidian or meteorite fragments as divine gifts, objects fallen from the heavens to empower, protect, or occasionally just look really cool on a necklace. Renkar finishes the tale with a soft exhale. The fire pops. Everyone sits in silence for a moment, letting the story settle into their bones. Then someone burps. The moment passes, but the magic lingers. You lie back down, eyes drifting upward to the rock ceiling above. You imagine stars on that surface, moving, glowing, telling stories of their own. And you realize this is how memory survives. In voice, in fire, in echoes. Your eyes are heavy, the heat from the fire clinging to your skin like a lazy hug. But something in you resists sleep. Not yet. The stories still hum in your chest, echoing alongside the distant call of a night bird and the low snore of someone who's either dreaming or choking on their own uvula. You rise slowly, careful not to disturb the fur pile beneath you or the foot you accidentally claimed as a pillow. With your blade tucked into your belt and your fingers still sticky with ash, you slip toward the back wall of the cave, the painting wall. It's not officially called that, of course. No one in the clan stands up and says, "Tonight I shall produce interpretive art." But this space, flat rock, smooth from years of soot and fingers, has become the unofficial gallery of the clan's history, your history. Tonight, you feel ready to add to it. You grab a small stone bowl from the shadows near the wall. It's filled with ochre, rusty red powder mixed with spit, grease, and crushed berries. Smells vaguely like fermented armpit. You love it. You dip your fingers in and press your palm to the stone. The smear is satisfying, your skin leaving behind a ghost version of your hand. You add another, then another, until it looks like a parade of five-fingered spirits dancing sideways. Then you switch to charcoal, black as night, soft as fear. With a bit of bone, you sketch the curve of a boar's tusk, the jagged blur of motion, the wide eyes and flared nostrils. You draw the moment, your moment, where the spear met the beast and time held its breath. You even add Grawl, though you make his arms a little shorter than necessary. Petty revenge, prehistoric style. Then, because you can't help it, you sketch a spiral in the top corner. Like the one from earlier, a nod, a whisper, a joke only the cave might get. Fringe theory alert. Some researchers believe that cave art wasn't just documentation, but a form of magic, a way to trap the spirit of the hunt, to shape fate through pigment and purpose. Others think it was pure expression, maybe even a form of therapy. Dear wall, today I nearly got gored. Again.
You step back and squint at your work. It's not perfect. The boar looks a little too much like a shaggy melon. Your spear is kinda bendy, and Grawl's face might resemble a startled potato. But it's yours. These walls tell stories long after voices fade. When the fire goes out, when your body gives in to sleep or to time, these marks remain. You've carved your place, not in legend maybe, but in soot and ochre, and the slightly damp corner of your shared reality. Someone shifts nearby, and you turn to see Rennie watching from the shadows. She says nothing, but she nods once. Approval, recognition, maybe even respect. Hard to tell in the dark. You return the nod and pack up your tools. Your fingers are stained, your back is sore, and you smell like a mixture of sweat and prehistoric paint fumes. Perfect. You crawl back to your fur pile, curl into your favorite hide, and exhale deeply. The images on the wall fade from view as your eyes close, but they're still there. And so are you.
The fire's a low glow now, barely more than smoldering coals nestled in a nest of ash. You're curled up tight under your furs, the warmth of meat and motion settling deep into your bones. Outside, the world shifts into its night self, softer, hushed, still as a predator's breath. But you're not asleep yet, because now it's night sounds time. It starts with the owls. They hoot from the treetops like old sages, cracking jokes no one understands. Then come the rustles, little scampers of rodents, the swoosh of bat wings, and the faint crack of twigs under something just heavy enough to make your imagination run laps. You open one eye. The cave is shadowed and serene. Most of the clan is asleep, sprawled like dropped laundry across hides and furs. Grawl snores from the far corner, a deep rhythmic sound like someone trying to throat sing through a log. Greg the mushroom kid sleeps with his arms wrapped around a basket of moss. Someone near the wall mumbles in their sleep. It might be a dream. It might be a vision. Or it might be them remembering where they left their other sandal. You shift under your hide, trying to find that sweet spot where your hips aren't pressing against cold rock and your knees aren't colliding like territorial neighbors. It's impossible. You give up. You listen. The wind outside whistles gently through the cave mouth, brushing the embers and your cheek with equal delicacy. The smell of smoke, sweat, and scorched bark lingers, an oddly comforting mix. Home, but also slightly alarming. Like your house is giving you a hug and a fire safety warning at the same time. Then, a sound cuts through everything. Sharp. Sudden. Snarl. You freeze. That wasn't a rodent. You don't move, but your entire soul sits up like a meerkat on espresso. The noise comes again, lower now, a growl. Faint, but close. Too close. Your brain plays the guessing game. Could be a big cat. Could be a bear. Could be worse. You peek toward the entrance. There's a silhouette. Just beyond the firelight, low, four-legged, sniffing. You reach quietly for your spear, fingers wrapping around it like it's the last warm thing on earth. Your heartbeat drums a rhythm that could wake the whole valley. The creature sniffs the air again. A pause. Then silence. And then it turns, slips back into the dark without a sound. It's gone. You exhale so slowly you feel your ribs creak. Your fingers loosen on the spear. Your fur suddenly feels a lot thinner. Historians still debate how early humans managed night threats. Some say they posted sentries. Others argue the fire was the only guard they needed. One theory even claims that sleeping close together, with overlapping breathing and movement, confused predators into thinking they were one large, slightly gassy creature. You like that theory. A cozy blob of defense. The cave settles again. One of the babies coughs in its sleep. A handful of embers pop in lazy defiance of the dark. You lie back down, your nerves slowly untangling, your eyes watching the cave mouth, just in case. Outside, the forest continues its nightly symphony. Inside, you breathe. Slower now. The night isn't over yet, but neither are you.
You lie awake a little longer, blinking into the slow fading firelight, your furs tugged up to your chin like they'll stop a saber-toothed tiger with good intentions. Around you, the others shift in sleep, occasional mutterings rising like bubbles in a stew, dream fragments and half-grunts in the universal language of too much bore. Then, from the corner of the cave, someone begins to hum. Not a song, exactly, just a slow, breathy rhythm. It's old Tarka. You recognize the tune. She sings it only on nights like this, after a double hunt, a full belly, and a narrow escape from a mystery growler at the cave entrance. It's a lullaby, or maybe a spell, or maybe both, a droning melody that melts your muscles and unties your thoughts. You stare at the cave ceiling, following the shadows painted there by the fire. They flicker and shift. Tree branches, a mammoth's tusk, someone's elbow raised mid-snore. You blink once, then again, and they change, like the stone is trying to remember something for you. The fears begin to blur into something softer, less sharp, less toothy. You roll onto your side, nestling into the scent of warm hide and charcoal. Someone else stirs and throws an arm across your legs. You sigh, but don't move it. Early humans didn't really do personal space. Survival depended on proximity, warmth, protection, and maybe a little involuntary foot cuddling. You're reminded of the old superstition: if you sing yourself to sleep while touching someone else, the cave spirits won't bother you. You don't believe in spirits, probably, but the humming's still going, so maybe better safe than haunted. You whisper a few lines of your own, low and mostly off-key. Stone above, fire below. Keep the teeth outside the glow. Not exactly Shakespeare, but it rhymes, and nobody's invented critics yet. Historians still argue over whether Paleolithic people practiced formal rituals before bed or just collapsed wherever gravity won. Some sites suggest planned sleep arrangements, mothers near infants, guards near the entrance, elders tucked into the warmest corner. Others show a mess of sleeping limbs and empty bones. You're in the latter category tonight, pure prehistoric sprawl. From the cave mouth, the air changes again, cooler now. The kind of air that sneaks into your blankets and makes you question every life decision that doesn't involve inventing central heating. You tug your hide tighter and inch closer to the fire. Embers glow like tired eyes, watching, pulsing, waiting. There's a final hiss, moisture hitting hot ash, and the last flickers dim. The silence returns, but it's not empty. It's full of breath, full of heartbeats, full of stories curling into the stone like cave paint, too quiet to see. You let your eyes close. The night outside may still hold teeth and claws and ancient dreams with claws of their own, but in here you have firelight, fur, and someone's elbow gently crushing your ribs. You smile. Sleep comes for you, not fast, not loud, but soft and certain. And for once, you don't fight it.
You wake again, but it's not morning. Not yet. Just that strange middle space between night and dawn, when everything is quiet, but listening. The cave is a soft mass of sleeping shapes and barely there breathing. The coals have dimmed to a dull orange shimmer, like a tired eye watching over the clan. And lucky you drew the short straw for night watch. You groan softly and wiggle out from under your furs, doing your best not to elbow whoever's curled against your left side. Possibly Grawl, possibly a bundle of roots. Hard to say in the dark. Your feet hit the cold stone floor with all the enthusiasm of someone stepping into a puddle of existential dread. You grab your torch, already prepared, dry moss tied tightly to a split branch, and ease it into the coals until the flame licks upward. It flares briefly, casting monstrous shadows on the cave walls. One looks like a bird with 6 heads. You blink. Nope, just your own hair. Cave fashion, dramatic by accident. You step outside, the torchlight throwing a shaky ring of glow across the rocks. The night air hits instantly, cool, crisp, and carrying a dampness that sneaks into your bones like it knows your weaknesses. You wrap your furs tighter and scan the ridge. Nothing, just stars and silence. You sit on the lookout rock near the cave mouth, the same one generations have probably used, now worn smooth by time and countless prehistoric butts. You plant yourself there and listen. To the owls, to the breeze, to the occasional echoing bark of something very far off, or hopefully very far off. The fire at your back crackles faintly. You stare into the darkness and wonder what's out there, crouched beyond your light, watching, waiting. The truth is, maybe nothing. Or maybe everything. That's the deal with the Stone Age. If you can't see it, it's probably terrifying and/or has claws. Historians still debate whether night watch was a formal duty or just something assigned to the lightest sleepers and the least popular clan members. You like to think of it as a sacred ritual, but also you're pretty sure Tarker rigged the straw draw earlier. She winked. To pass the time, you hum a little tune, quiet, offbeat, one of the old ones, about a bear that lost its cave and wandered into the stars. Your voice drifts into the trees. Nothing answers. Good. You take a bite of something hard and slightly charred from your pouch. It tastes like bark and dreams. Possibly last week's root biscuits. Possibly a rock. You chew anyway. Then you spot it. Movement. A shadow shifts near the tree line. Low, slow, pausing. You freeze. You raise your torch higher. The flame dances, bright and bold. The shadow doesn't come closer. It stands for a moment, watching, then melts away into the woods like mist curling back into a dream. You exhale. Fringe theory time. Some early humans believed night spirits took the shape of animals, wolves, owls, deer, that tested the watchers to see if they were brave enough to face the dark. If not, the spirits took something in return. Your warmth, your voice, your spear hand. Your voice? Still here. Your spear hand? A little sore, but operational. So you count it a win. You lean back, eyes lifting to the stars above. So many, scattered like crushed bone over velvet. The fire behind you hums low. You're here. And for now, you are the flame in the night.
The stars above you are ridiculous, like someone spilled crushed quartz across a piece of obsidian and forgot to clean up. Some shine cold and distant. Others pulse softly, like they're trying to tell you secrets you're not quite old enough to understand. You lie back on the lookout rock, torch planted nearby, flames sputtering now and then in the breeze like it's pretending to be brave. Somewhere an owl hoots once, twice. You look up and wonder, do mammoths dream? It's a serious question. Grawl once insisted they do. that they dream of rolling in snow and stomping on annoying humans who throw spears with poor aim. That last part may have been a personal dig. Tarka says the stars are where all the animals go when they dream, that every one of them is a piece of old sky stories, watching us, sometimes guiding, sometimes just giggling at us, tripping over our own feet. You trace a few constellations with your finger. There's the hunter, the long-toothed cat, the great bear, who kinda looks more like a squashed rabbit from this angle, but sure. It's peaceful out here, in the way that only prehistoric stillness can be. No hum of machines, no lights from cities, just a gentle creak of trees, the rustle of wind, and the occasional gut-churning growl from your own stomach. Again? You literally just ate half a boar. Your body is greedy. You shift your weight, bones popping audibly in protest, and pull your fur tighter around your shoulders. Somewhere behind you, someone snores loud enough to echo off the cave walls. You smile. That's comfort. That's safety. Weird, noisy safety. You glance over at your torch. It's shorter now, flames smaller, reaching just a little less into the dark. You debate feeding it a little more moss, but decide to let it shrink naturally. The stars are doing a better job anyway. Besides, it's kind of nice to let the shadows win for a little while. Fringe note: some ancient cultures believed that the stars were holes in the fabric of the world, pinpricks that let through the light of other, better places, places with always ripe berries, fire that never dies, and absolutely no snakes in the grass. You wonder if that's true. Maybe there's a version of you up there right now, living in a cave with heated floors, and never losing their best spear right before a mammoth charge. Maybe they didn't step in fermented frog juice last week. Historians still argue about early humans' relationship with the stars. Were constellations part of their myths? Did they map the sky? Use it for time? Or did they just lie on rocks like this, pointing up and saying, "That one looks like a mammoth butt"? Your eyelids grow heavy, breath slowing. Your shift is almost done. Soon, someone else will take your place. Maybe Rennie. She's good at spotting trouble. Or maybe Tarka, who insists the spirits speak louder near dawn. You lie there one moment more, soaking in the quiet. And just before you rise, you whisper something to the sky. No words, just a thought. A thank you. For safety, for food, for another day survived without being stepped on, eaten, or embarrassed too badly by your own cave drawing. Then you stand, stretch, and take one last look at the stars. They're still watching. And maybe, just maybe, they wink back.
You shuffle back into the cave on quiet feet. Torch now just a smoky stick, its last glow trailing behind like a sleepy ghost. The warmth of the fire embraces you instantly. Even in its low ember state, it radiates a comfort no hide or muscle can match. The kind that says, yes, you're home, and no, nothing's waiting to bite you in here. You make your way across the firstscape, stepping over limbs, satchels, and a suspicious pile that might be a small person or a really ambitious bundle of moss. You find your spot, your designated hollow in the furs, and lower yourself down like someone twice your age. Every joint pops, every muscle sighs. Someone stares next to you. Mira, maybe. She mutters a few syllables and rolls toward the wall, her breath slowing again, probably dreaming about berries or frog prophecies, or that time she won an argument by throwing a snail at Grawl. Classic. You lie there, staring at the cave ceiling. Your eyes slowly adjust. The fire's glow pulses against the soot-dark rock, illuminating the shadows like flickering ghosts. There's your handprint. Your bore, vaguely melon-shaped. And above it, the spiral. You wonder who made that. Why? Was it a warning? A memory? A joke? Or just someone trying to make their mark in a world that erases footprints within hours? You let your thoughts wander. They curl and twist, soft-edged and tangled. You think about the hunt, the surge of adrenaline, the spear leaving your hand, the boar's scream. You think about the meal, the laughter, the stories, the rock you sat on that you're now fairly sure gave you a bruise shaped like a squirrel. Your mind floats further, past the cave, past the trees, into the fields where the deer run and the stars dance overhead like glowing ash on the night breeze. You picture your clan from above, tiny, fierce, ridiculous. Shouting, cooking, drawing mammoths with stubby limbs and lopsided eyes. Living. Historians still argue how early humans processed memory. Did they dream like we do? Did their minds replay the hunt, the danger, the joy in shadowy dreamscapes? Or were their dreams simpler? Shapes, colors, sensations? Who's to say you're not currently dreaming right now? Rennie lets out a soft snort from across the cave. Someone chuckles in their sleep. The wind brushes past the cave mouth again, carrying the scent of pine, earth, and distant rain. You close your eyes. It's strange how used to this you've become, this rhythm. Hunt, eat, dance, watch, dream, repeat. Some days you long for a quieter life, fewer boars, less mud, fewer glowing frogs. But other days, like today, you feel it, the pulse of it all. The absurd, dangerous, beautiful continuity. The way you and your people carve yourselves into the world, not with metal or monuments, but with furs, fire, and drawings that look like mammoths with a limp. You take a breath. Deep, full, grounding. The fire pops one last time. The world exhales. And your eyes, finally, stay closed.
The cave is utterly still now, as if the stone itself is sleeping. Not the kind of stillness that feels empty, but the kind that cradles. You lie on your side, a little colder now that the fire's given up most of its heat, and listen to the soft chorus of breathing, snoring, the occasional sleep mumble about fish or roots. It's a lullaby of survival. Dawn hasn't arrived yet, but it's close. You can feel it, sneaking along the edge of the sky outside, tiptoeing like a bashful predator. The air in the cave carries a chill, a kind of hush before the battle energy. And though your eyes are closed, your mind hasn't quite followed. You reach down and pull your furs tighter around your neck, letting your fingers find that one soft patch, worn smooth from 100 nights of clutching it during dreams and storms and moments like this, right before the light returns. Tomorrow, you'll rise early, again. You'll check the traps, clean your tools, maybe argue over whose turn it is to scrape hides. You'll laugh when Greg steps in something awful. You'll side Irene when she accidentally wins another root-picking contest. You'll flinch at distant rustles. You'll grin after lucky throws. Because that's the rhythm, that's the drumbeat under every grunt and growl and gathering step. That's what it means to be alive in this raw, ridiculous, magnificent place. The life you live is made of repetition, but never sameness. It's simple, but not easy. There's a pulse to it, a hum beneath the hunger. And somehow, through all the cold nights and half-cooked frogs, you're still here. Your thoughts begin to drift. You're back in the hunt. The rush of air, the thunder of hooves, the sound of your own heartbeat echoing against stone and skin and time itself. The moment stretches, soft and unreal. You see the spiral again, glowing gently in the dark. It turns slowly, not inward, not outward, just onward. And then, let the fire fade now. Let the sounds slip further away. Stones settling, firs shifting, distant branches creaking in the breeze. Your body is heavy, still wrapped in the scent of smoke, wild grass, and the faint tang of roasted meat. You did well today. You survived, thrived, and found small triumphs in the shape of a root, the warmth of a friend, the flash of stars above. Feel the quiet settle deeper into your bones. Each breath is slower now, drawn long and low, like the cave itself is breathing with you. You are not alone, not in this place, not in this rhythm. Your legs sink into the soft fur beneath you. Your arms fall loose. The ache in your shoulders drifts into nothing. Your thoughts slow, stretching like shadows at dusk. There's no fire to stoke, no beast to chase, no stone to sharpen. Not now. If you listen carefully, you might still hear the low song of the night watch echoing far away, a single voice against the dark, gentle and sure. But even that fades, replaced by the hush of rest. The stars outside keep their silent vigil. The stone above you holds your dreams, and the earth below promises tomorrow. Let sleep wrap around you like fur, soft, safe, endless.